I want to talk today about you guys and about your business and about the struggles that you've had, because I think people will identify with some of them because you guys are good leaders and you are really exemplary business people. Because you show up every day and ready to work. You are incredibly drama-free. You are not only tied into your goal, but you're also tied into the company goal. You guys contribute to the overall vision that the company is going to, and at the same time, you really run a spotless business for the most part. You know, no one's perfect, but I think if I had to, put my finger on the ideal agent that any broker would want in their firm, it would be you guys. Mm-hmm. Because the way you approach your business, the intellectual way you approach your business, like almost from a corporate perspective, because you both have a lot of experience in that corporate world, and I want to talk about that. But you also understand people, and you also understand drive, and I'm always honored to have you guys contribute to whatever it is we're working on, because your brain power and your ideas and the way you approach everything is very systematic, and it's not something that I naturally do, so I admire it. I approach everything more from a gut level. I kind of Jedi my way through life, and luckily that sensory nerve is usually accurate, but a lot of times it's not. And when I see people like you that calculate your way through life, not to say that you don't feel it, because I know, especially Rhonda, you do. Not many people know that, but I know you've got a sensory nerve that is extremely, well adapted. And we can talk about that too, but I think I want to talk about some of the technical ways that you guys work your business, because I think a lot of people need that kind of help.
Sure.
And also, you guys are entrepreneurs as well. You are climbing that ladder of that real estate entrepreneur who isn't just a real estate agent. You are an entrepreneur in the real estate space.
Yeah.
And that's cool, because you're taking advantage of other opportunities other than just taking listings.
Yeah.
Because if that's all you've done in your life as a real estate agent, then you've missed it.
Yeah.
Obviously that's one of the things we preach here. So thank you for being here today.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeramie.
Thank you.
You betcha.
So, when you say struggles, I think particularly about our first couple of years, we were still relatively new to the area. We had just moved here, 3 years prior to starting in real estate. And, we're not, neither one of us, although we're good relating to people, we're not naturally networkers. We're not out there shaking babies and kissing hands. We're, we like people, but
yes.
It's just not a natural thing. So we didn't really have a network at all when we started. In
Super important, a lot, because I get asked that question a lot. Like, hey, how do I start a business in an area where I wasn't born and raised? So that's not an easy feat.
No, it's not. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 times as hard in this market, because it's a small market, and you've got folks like Todd Bradshaw who, when we were first starting out, it was like everybody we talked to knew Todd Bradshaw.
Yeah,
we were like,
right.
And loves Todd Bradshaw.
Yes.
And rightly so. He's a great guy.
No doubt.
But, you're a new realtor and you're trying to find people to do business with you, and they're like, oh, you're Worley and Associates? Yeah, Todd Bradshaw's there. We know him. We're friends with him. We're coworkers with him. We've done shows with him. Whatever,
Yep.
So I remember, it was those first couple of years. It seemed like we were beating our heads against the wall,
trying to grow that circle of influence.
Yeah,
starting with nothing.
Yeah, trying to grow a book of business, trying to grow people who might consider doing business with us and calling us their realtors.
Let's also point out that in the very beginning of your business, you both had jobs.
Oh, yeah.
You both had retail jobs. Mm-hmm. And so talk a little bit about that. And let's actually, before we dive into your real estate career, let's kind of talk about you guys. Let's talk about how you met. Let's talk about some of the things that brought you guys together. Because here you are, a phenomenal real estate team, at 2022. But let's go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet?
Well, we met through retail. We were both working for the same company at the time, and we were both going through some personal struggles. We were friends with each other's family and kids, and but that's where we met. We met through our jobs, and then I got sent to a different state to open up some stores, and then it seemed like we were both going through divorces, and that's kind of how everything started.
Dan told me that you guys were worthy rivals back then. Like
We
he had
were.
his store and you had your store,
Yeah.
and you guys were always like competing with each other, but also happy for each other.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like when Rhonda's store would, beat their big sales goal for the weekend or had a great regional visit, I was happy for her. But when my store beat her in some metric, I was the first one to pick up the phone and be like, "Did you see that? Did you see my percent last week?
Yeah.
What were you doing? Did
Yeah.
you take the week off?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was definitely, we were, not several states away, one state away. I had a store in Kansas City. She had a store in Omaha at that point, and that was with DSW, and same district though. So we saw each other's numbers. We interacted on conference calls. So definitely there was some rivalry there. For sure.
You're both in retail. You blended your families, and now you got to Branson.
Yep.
So how did you make the decision to get into the real estate world?
That really had to do with retail as well, partly, but also just this burning desire that we've always had to be real estate investors. And when we moved to Branson, we took a baby step there in that we, instead of selling our house in Kansas City, turned it into a rental.
Oh, good.
And
Forced yourself into landlordship.
Yeah.
Good.
And had a setup with my brother, actually, one of my brothers that still lived in Kansas City. He had helped me do quite a bit of work on that house, so he knew the ins and outs. So we made him our property manager, basically the guy that the tenants would call if something needed to be fixed, and paid him a share of the rent for that. And we were doing that, and our goal was, when you're a retail manager, you can get really large annual bonuses. And I had a big one coming up. This was 2016. I was supposed to get it beginning of 2017 for the 2016 year, and we were going to use that bonus for a down payment on our next investment property.
Nice.
It's going to be a long-term rental. We had no idea about short-term rentals at this point. It wasn't even in our vocabulary, on our radar. And the company that I worked for at the time, they came to me at the end of the year, and it looked like I had made it. It was based on profit, and they said, "Oh, we made an accounting error. We didn't take out the proper amount of taxes out of your P&L all year long, so we had to charge your P&L in December to get it right. So you didn't make your profit goal, and you're not going to get your bonus."
No.
Yeah. And I fought it. I went to my boss's boss, went up the food chain, because it wasn't just my bonus. It was my managers and my employees as well. Each were going to bonus based on that, and we all worked very hard that year to make our goals, and it's extremely difficult to do, but it was going to be extremely rewarding. And I remember, that dragged on for a month or so. And when I finally got the text from my boss at the time, that he was just like, we're done. We've hit a roadblock. Like, we've gone as high up the food chain as we can go. You're not going to get your bonus. I remember Rhonda and I, it was just her and I sitting in the living room that evening, and I said a very foul word at the top of my lungs.
Oh, yeah, you're like Clark Griswold with the razzle, frazzle, razzle,
Yes.
frazzle, give me the Tylenol.
That's right.
You got the jelly of the month club, baby.
Yes.
That's what you got.
Literally.
Wow.
It was a Clark Griswold moment.
Nice.
Yeah. And when I simmered down from that and could speak intelligibly again, I said, "You know what, Rhonda? We're going to get our real estate licenses, and we're going to make our own bonuses. We're not going to rely on some corporation to get us the money that we want, that we need to invest in real estate."
Sounds like he didn't ask you if you were on board with this. Sounds like he. So how?
I guess I really
But
did.
you were probably
He didn't,
just as
but-
charged up.
Yes, I mean, of course, we were in corporate
Yes,
jobs, so we
yes.
both needed a way to get out, and we both enjoyed real estate. So I was all for it.
You needed a way out. That's so important. So why do you guys, because, and I want to ask somebody like you guys this question because I ponder this question a lot. I have questions with people, like conversations with people, I should say, all the time that are in the corporate world that want to bust out. And you just said that you needed out. And what do you think that the corporate world is missing? Not all corporations, because some companies are just phenomenal,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. There are some.
But for the most part, they're not. It's like, how do we govern as many people as possible,
Yeah.
you know, with these rules that are going to try to achieve a certain result? But it seems to be a common denominator in the corporate world. Could you put your finger on that? Like, why does corporate America suck for employees?
Well, I think there's a cap, and once you reach that cap, you're kind of stuck. So then you kind of ferment in the position that you're in.
Great
and
word.
It's
Yes.
not as exciting as it was when you started and you were working up the food chain, so to speak, and you just kind of get bored with it, and it's just a daily motion, and you're not in love with it anymore.
Yeah.
It seems to me like there is a level of creative energy that can be developed in that. And then once you realize that some of your best ideas and greatest ideas, you know, have to rot on the glass ceiling and drip down as condensation again, like
Yes.
fermentation is an awesome word for that, because that's true. Because your creative energy just gets stuck. What were you going to say, Dan?
I was going to say, I don't know about fermentation, because fermentation can, create a lot
Yield
of
wonderful
good
things.
things. So probably more rot than fermentation.
I think this is distillation, isn't it? I mean, well, no, it starts with fermentation, I suppose, but
Rhonda's got the fermentation.
there you go.
in her wine glass. But she hit the nail on the head right there. I was just, thinking about 3 or 4 different things that suck about, being in corporate America. But if I had to put it all under one unifying theme, it would be that you're limited. That, when you work for a corporation, you can be your level best and level up every single day. And I did for decades. I wanted to be the best at my craft. That's who I am. And you get to a certain point, and then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're better than you were the next day or the past year, or it just doesn't matter. And that can be soul crushing.
That is soul crushing. And I think this fully exemplifies one of the sort of anchor phrases that I landed on when I was really into Tony Robbins. I still am, but like when I was struggling to find my way forward, I landed on a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. And one of his anchor sayings was like, it's in that adversity that the seeds of a greater benefit are planted, and people who are successful think that way. And you may not even realize that it happened, but you used it. You used the power of that horrible adverse event to be a spark, an explosion for the passion that caused you to go through great effort.
Yeah.
Because learning real estate is not easy. I mean, getting a real estate license, any schmuck can get a real estate license, let's face it.
Yeah.
You can. And I think that's a lot of the problem with the real estate world out there. But there's effort in the learning curve of real estate. There's effort in going back to, where we walked off the path, which was you showing up with the real estate license in an area where there's no circle of influence.
Yeah.
That's the tough part of the business. So the passion that, severed once and for all, well, not quite, because you hung on to the retail biz for a while.
Yeah, we
But
need to pay the bills.
it began, but the decision to quit retail happened then.
Yeah.
You guys are smart enough to have planned an exit strategy. Most people don't. Most people quit, especially a lot of young people now.
Yeah.
They need to learn to suffer longer, because there's wisdom in the suffering, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you guys did. You suffered your way right through an exit strategy and walked into a well-established real estate business, which I think was very smart of you guys. But that had to create some challenges, right? So not because you're working a job and you're serving clients. So let's talk about that. And I want to let everybody know exactly when this was, because I meant to bring this, but I forgot. But due to technology and my wonderful wife who responds to my text messages, I am going to read this to you. It is, and I brought it in. I think I showed you recently.
Oh,
it is
yeah.
this business card, and it's very
That's
special
awesome.
to me, so I kept it. and it's a business card. It's a 3x5 index card, white index card with the red line at the top and blue lines. And it says, it's in Rhonda's handwriting, I believe, and it says, "Can you see if Jeramie," and she spelled my name right, which no one does at this point in my relationship.
Right.
So that says a lot about you, Rhonda, because being somebody who has their name misspelled constantly,
All the time.
you really appreciate people that care enough to actually know what it is, and not many people do. That's very special. Anyway, it says, "Can you see if Jeramie is available tomorrow, Tuesday, 2-21-17 at 4 p.m. for my husband and I to talk to him. Dan and Rhonda Fortin," and then it's got both your phone numbers. So I'll let you look at it so you can see
Wow.
a walk down memory lane. Mm-hmm. So in 2017, you were choosing a place to hang your license.
Yep.
You were still in retail.
Yep.
So let's talk about what was going through your brain during that time.
Well, I mean, the first step was getting our license. So we needed to figure out the classes. Dan learns differently than I do, so he decided he's going to do his online and I was going to do mine in the class. That's how I learn better. Thank God I met Kelly, because that's how I learned about vacation rentals. And Kelly was talking about it in one of the classes, said you had written a book, and I was like, "Ooh, can I have that book?" And I went home that night and called Dan, and he was on a business trip and said, "You are not going to believe this." And I explained everything to him, and that's kind of how it started with, okay, vacation rentals it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a little longer to get my license than it did Dan, but I fought really hard to get it. Pretty pleased.
I remember that. That was one of the first times that I really kind of got to know you and your grit and what you're about. And a lot of times, people give up after one or two times. I've seen it happen so many times. And sometimes, and I honestly, I pray over the threshold of our office. Mm-hmm. And, I make sure that there's an intellectual component, there's an emotional component to me deciding on who comes in and out of the building. And then there's a spiritual component on there. And, these are the three sort of guiding principles for me. And in some cases, there's been a lot of people that I know that have like, "Yeah, Jeramie, we really want to do business with you." But I honestly don't know if it's the right fit. There's something there. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times I rely on the real estate test to weed people out. Yeah. Because if you can't go through the effort to pass that real estate exam again and again and again, this business will eat you alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like Rhonda got so close so many times. And like I have seen people, very intelligent. It's a tricky test, right? It's more of a puzzle than a test. Yes. It's definitely not a test of intelligence. It's a test of, can I outsmart this test? Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And I've always been horrible at them. And whenever I see the clock going on, and my anxiety level goes through the roof. But it was impressive to me. Even top producers, I've had to incentivize. Like when Tracy was going through the same thing, she had the same thing happen. She passed it once, she took it once, took it twice. And I was in a place where I needed a licensee right now in my business because I was overwhelmed. And I was like, and she had started to go down. I could see the mental process she was starting to go down. And it was, I need coaching. I need tutoring. I need to continue to help. I need help to get past this test. And I'm like, you just need to go take the tests, And so I was like, I'll give you $200 if you pass the test next time. This is your incentive. She needed the money and she was like, passed it. It's like, it's amazing to me. But you were so internally motivated. So what kept you going back into the fray again and again?
It was the thought that I wanted to get out of retail. Mm-hmm. This was going to help me get out of retail, and I was bound and determined to do it. That was my goal, and I was going to keep taking it as of today if I needed to. Yeah. I was going to do it.
Yeah. So. Well, that's when I knew you were a tiger, mm-hmm. and not to mess with you, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, but you passed.
I did.
And you both, so you didn't really know. So my wife was in real estate class with you.
Yes.
There was some interaction, but mm-hmm. the short-term rental biz was still fairly new at the time.
Yeah.
And so you didn't really know much about it, but yet it seems like you had made a passionate decision to pursue it. Why did you do that?
Because we were already investors and wanted to increase that side. We have 6 kids, and our goal was to have a property for each child once it's time for us to go. And that's another big goal that we're focusing on.
To leave an estate for your
kids.
family, yeah.
Absolutely. And for me, you know, I wasn't in class with Kelly. Rhonda was, and what she glossed over in that call when she called me, I was in Phoenix. I remember she was like, "Yeah, there's this gal in my class. Her name's Kelly, and her husband do short-term rentals, and they make, I think, you know, this was 2015, 2016 numbers at the time. She said something like 25,000 or 30,000 on a 3-bedroom unit, you know, and we're used to long-term rental numbers. And I remember being on the phone going, "Get out of here. That's baloney. I don't even believe that. That sounds like a scam, Rhonda." And she's like, No, I think it's for real. Her husband wrote a book." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever, you know." So Rhonda got the book from Kelly, and I read the book. I ate it up. I was like, "What is this?" You know, my mind was just blown. And when I got done reading the book, I was like, "Rhonda, we got to go meet this guy." You know, and then we met you, and as you know, after the meeting, I remember telling Rhonda, we need to go to work for that guy and learn everything he knows, because we were just that blown away with, you know, with the concept, with the industry, and with your mastery of it. And
Well, let me say this. Like, let me peel back the curtain a little bit. So, like, that's just when I had decided to open up my real estate firm. I mean, think this was like
yeah,
5 years ago, you know, and it was like really difficult for me to say, "Hey, I'm Jeramie Worley, and here's Worley and Associates," because nobody cares. I had a really good reputation in town, and that kind of helped the local agents.
Yeah.
Like when they were making a phone call and saying, "Hey, I'm with Jeramie. Can you let me into this house?" You know, that helped with that. But outside of that, 38 miles outside of that, nobody knows who I was or what I, you know, was up to.
yeah,
So it wasn't easy for me as a real estate broker to find the right people, you know, to show up. And so we really had to convince a lot of people in the beginning. And a lot of people, I don't even want to convince people.
Right.
It was the Todd Bradshaws that came in that were like, "Look, somebody over here at Keller Williams is promising to give me their book of business. And, you know, why should I come to you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You tell me." I'm like, "That sounds like a great opportunity, man. Like, you should take it." Like, I cannot promise you that. What I can is that I'm not going to let you fail. Yeah. And I'll pick up the phone, you know?
right,
And so I was in that mode where, like, the pickings were, you know, slim for me. And I was still selective. There was people that I didn't want to come in, you know, I wanted to avoid.
yeah,
But it was very special. You guys were the first people to come in that I felt like I didn't have to convince. And I remember looking at Glenda after you left, and I was like, well, that was easier than it should have been. I mean, they just kind of came in and they joined our firm, and they're cool people. Like, is it that easy? You know, I felt like I didn't have to convince you, but
yeah,
you guys already knew exactly what you wanted.
yeah.
And that's cool. Most people don't when they enter this business.
What's really cool, I was talking to a prospective agent today about this, is, you know, telling them about the value of the Worley Real Estate Network. I explained how we came on board. We were drawn by that short-term rental, you know, knowledge that you were willing to provide. But little did we know we would get this amazing leadership and mentorship that helped grow us into amazing realtors.